With multiple Emmy nominations and a massive legacy that defined the 1960s, I Dream of Jeannie was the gold standard of American TV fantasy. But put the laughter aside, because behind those iconic magical blinks lay a dark, chaotic reality brewing off camera. Our supposed hero, Major Nelson, was actually a high-functioning alcoholic long before transforming into the most hated villain in television history. Meanwhile, the legendary Barbara Eden has been living a nightmare that no genie's wish could ever fix. The soul-crushing loss of her only son to a fatal overdose. Who's still alive after 61 years? Let's look back at the cast of I Dream of Jeannie, then and now. Number 1. Barbara Eden, the magical icon, facing a heartbreaking reality. Take yourself back to 1965, when all of America held its breath for a mischievous blink and a puff of pink smoke. Barbara Eden, clad in alluring pink silk, stepped out of her ancient bottle to become Jeannie, an omnipotent, innocent spirit with powers that could bend the very fabric of the universe. With her flawless, radiant beauty and prestigious Emmy nominations, Barbara was the literal definition of Hollywood perfection. Audiences were captivated not just by the on-screen magic, but by the absolute belief that her real life was just as enchanted and happy as it appeared. Jeannie granted thousands of wishes for Major Nelson, and we all believed that Barbara herself lived a life shielded by eternal miracles, where sorrow or the rot of fame could never reach. But behind that pink silk lay a cruel reality that would eventually shatter the glamorous facade Hollywood worked so hard to build. The ultimate, most agonizing irony in entertainment history is that the woman who possessed every magical power on Earth was completely helpless against the monster eating away at her own family. In 2001, darkness officially fell when the curse of fame claimed her only son, Matthew Ansara. The world was shaken to its core to learn that while his mother was still smiling as a beacon of hope, Matthew was sinking into the depths of the White Death. The tragedy exploded when he was found dead behind the wheel. A brutal heroin overdose that ended the life of the son Barbara loved more than life itself. Imagine the heart-crushing pain of a mother realizing that even though she could conjure gold or space travel on screen, in the real world, she couldn't find a single miracle to save her child from the barrel of drug addiction. This tragedy wasn't just a loss, it was the total collapse of the Jeannie persona. Barbara was forced to expose this bleeding scar in her controversial memoir, Jeannie Out of the Bottle, where she admitted that Hollywood was a hollow industry, and that the magic of Jeannie was actually just a beautiful lie covering decades of psychological trauma. Now, in 2026, as the pink smoke has completely vanished into history, reality has once again proven its cruelty. At 94 years old, Barbara Eden stands as a final living witness, a lonely sentinel of a bygone era. She is the last of the main cast still standing, forced to watch all of her closest co-stars fade one by one into the shadows. Looking at Barbara at 94, you don't see the mischievous Jeannie of old. You see a woman carrying the weight of nearly a century of ups and downs. Time has taken her youth, her colleagues, and even the final warmth of her only son. The magic is gone, the bottle is shattered, and all that remains is an aging icon trying to smile through scarred memories. Barbara Eden in 2026 is the starkest reminder of the truth, that in Hollywood, the illusion might be breathtakingly beautiful, but when the lights go out, only the pain is truly eternal. Number 2. Larry Hagman, a golden astronaut, tamed by hidden demons. In the mid-1960s, Larry Hagman was the literal embodiment of the American dream, Major Anthony Nelson. Clad in his razor-sharp astronaut uniform, he stood as a bastion of discipline, integrity, and saint-like patience against Jeannie's magical whims. Audiences back then didn't just adore Larry for his comedic timing. They worshipped the image of the quintessential good guy, a man you could trust in the high-stakes heat of the space race. At that moment, Hagman was the golden boy of television, a flawless hero in the eyes of millions, and a shining example of the moral standards of old America. But behind that heroic mask lay a raw, sobering truth that exposes the hollow core of Hollywood glamour. While the world idolized Major Nelson, Larry Hagman was secretly drowning in a living nightmare of addiction. The real scandal wasn't splashed across the tabloids, it was hidden in plain sight within his trailer. Hagman was a high-functioning alcoholic of terrifying proportions, later admitting to consuming 4 bottles of champagne every single day, while the cameras were rolling on I Dream of Jeannie. Every time Jeannie blinked on screen, Larry was fighting a private war just to stay upright. It was a staggering slap in the face to public morality. The man millions of children looked up to was, in reality, a severe alcoholic. But the industry looked the other way, happily enabling his self-destruction as long as the ratings kept climbing. It's the ruthless, dirty secret of show business. They don't care if you're dying inside, as long as you sparkle for the lens. The spiral didn't end there. In a twist of poetic irony, Hagman eventually reinvented himself as J.R. Ewing, the most hated man on television in Dallas. It was as if fate had grown tired of the charade. He no longer had to play the good guy, instead pouring his own darkness, greed, and internal rot into the role. But decades of chemical indulgence eventually demanded payment. In 1995, his body finally gave out, leading to a desperate life-or-death liver transplant. Hagman spent the rest of his days living on a stranger's organ, a haunting reminder that there is no magic spell strong enough to undo the wreckage of a life unraveled by the bottle. Now, 14 years after his passing and 61 years since the world first met him, what remains of Larry Hagman? The vibrant young astronaut is gone, replaced by a grim cautionary tale about the crushing weight of fame. Passing away in 2012 from cancer complications, he left behind a legacy defined by total contradiction. On one side, the beaming smile of Major Nelson. On the other, the cold ruthlessness of J.R. Ewing and the long, dark shadow of 1,000 empty bottles. Number 3. Hayden Rourke, the suspicious doctor's silent life of secrets. In the vibrant, colorful world of I Dream of Jeannie, Hayden Rourke appeared as Major Nelson's recurring nightmare, the psychiatrist, Dr. Alfred Bellows. With those perpetually squinted, suspicious eyes and a razor-sharp uniform, he was the personification of order, discipline, and sanity amidst the magical chaos. Audiences remember Rourke for his brilliant comedic timing in those desperate, bittersweet moments where he'd try and fail to prove Nelson was losing his mind. At that time, Hayden Rourke was the face of the 1960s American intellectual elite, a man the public believed had not a single crack in his moral armor or his lifestyle. But the greatest irony in television history is this: a man who spent his entire on-screen career trying to expose the secrets of others was carrying the heaviest, most silent secret of old Hollywood. Behind Dr. Bellows' suspicious gaze, Hayden Rourke lived a double life for decades. In an American society fueled by prejudice and a show business ready to crush anyone who deviated from the norm, Rourke was forced to hide the truth, that he was a gay man. This wasn't just a personal secret, it was a sentence handed down by the era. The real scandal wasn't his identity, but the cold hypocrisy of the entertainment system back then. They let you shine before the lens, but only if you buried your true self in the shadows. For over 30 years, Rourke shared a happy, enduring life with his partner, director Eustace Addis, yet that love was never allowed a single moment under the red carpet lights. The contrast was brutal. On screen, he was frazzled by the smallest things. In reality, he had to maintain a chilling composure to protect his love and his career from the prying eyes of the public. When he passed away in 1987 from multiple myeloma, he was no longer just the pitiable psychiatrist teased by a genie. He became a symbol of quiet dignity and sacrifice. Co-stars like Barbara Eden would later speak of him with absolute reverence, describing him as a true prince, a man who chose a private life to ensure that the audience's memory of Dr. Bellows remained untarnished. Passing away at 76, Hayden Rourke took the dark corners of old Hollywood with him to the grave. Now, in 2026, as society has grown more open, we finally see the vast chasm between the image and the reality. The real magic wasn't in the genie's blink, but in the endurance of a man who kept his mask firmly in place until his very last breath. Time may fade the sitcom reruns, but it only highlights the scars of an artist who lived his entire life in silence just to give the world something to laugh about. Number 4. Bill Daly, the comic genius, hiding a silent struggle. In the glowing frames of the 1960s, Bill Daly was an indispensable piece of the magic that gave A Dream of Jeannie its heartbeat. As Major Roger Healy, the smooth-talking, mischievous best friend always looking to turn Jeannie's spells into personal gain, Bill won over millions with his God-given comedic timing. He was the personification of effortless wit, a man who could diffuse any high-stakes crisis with a perfectly timed deadpan joke. Back then, audiences adored him because they saw a fountain of endless optimism. a man who seemed completely unburdened by the heavy weights of the real world. But behind that lightning-fast banter and flawless delivery lay a cruel, hidden truth. Bill Daly could barely read his own scripts. He suffered from severe dyslexia, a condition that, in the eyes of old Hollywood, was practically a death sentence for an actor. In an era where perfection was demanded and a single mistake could lead to being discarded, Bill lived in constant fear of being exposed as illiterate among geniuses. To maintain his star-studded facade, Bill performed a superhuman feat that few could even fathom. He memorized every single script entirely by ear, listening to others read them aloud. Every witty punchline wasn't the result of casual improvisation. It was the fruit of thousands of silent, agonizing hours spent training to deceive the world. The show business of that time had zero compassion for mental struggles. They wanted a machine that produced laughter, regardless of the war the artist fought with every single word. Bill's silence wasn't just to save his career. It was a quiet rebellion against a society that judged a man's intellect by his ability to read a page. In 2018, Bill Daly passed away at the age of 91. He left this world peacefully, a stark departure from the chaotic spirals of Larry Hagman or the soul-crushing grief of Barbara Eden. Bill proved that real magic doesn't come from a genie's bottle, but from the power to hide your own struggle just to gift the world a moment of joy. Time eventually took his breath, but it returned to the audience a beautiful truth, a comedic genius who conquered his own limitations with an iron will, right in the heart of a Hollywood obsessed with frivolous standards. Number 5. Barton McLean, the stern general lost to time's cruelty. Have you ever wondered how the most commanding general in the space race could quietly vanish at the very height of his career? During the golden era of the 1960s, Barton McLean was the literal embodiment of iron-fisted discipline as General Martin Peterson. With his granite-jawed expression and a voice like rolling thunder, he was the bedrock that kept Jeannie's magical world from spiraling into total chaos. Audiences saw him as a titan of endurance, a Hollywood Iron Man with hundreds of credits to his name, a star the public expected to dominate the screen for decades to come. But fate dealt a merciless hand just as his legacy reached its absolute peak. The ultimate irony? The general who commanded an entire military base was left utterly powerless against a real-world illness. In 1969, while the series was still a ratings juggernaut, Barton McLean suddenly passed away from pneumonia. His passing wasn't just a loss, it marked the beginning of the haunting general's curse that would hang over the production. The Hollywood machine exposed its cold, industrial heart. Instead of pausing to honor a veteran star, they simply replaced him before his seat was even cold. He died never knowing that the show would become a timeless legacy spanning over half a century. 61 years later, his memory stands as a stark reminder. No matter how much power you wield on screen, Hollywood glamour is often just a puff of pink smoke caught in the merciless winds of fate. Number 6. Vinton Hayworth, a brief legacy. Shadowed by tragic coincidence, Vinton Hayworth stepped onto the set of I Dream of Jeannie with an almost impossible task, filling the massive power vacuum left behind by Barton McLean. As General Winfield Schaefer, he brought a breath of fresh air to Cape Kennedy, commanding and authoritative, yet fueled by a vibrant energy and sharp, witty outbursts of temper. Fans remember him as the show's saving grace, the man who kept the series on track during its challenging final seasons. However, a bone-chilling coincidence would soon turn his legacy into a tragic footnote. It was as if an invisible shroud had fallen over the rank of general on this show. Just months after the cameras stopped rolling on the final episode in 1970, Vinton Hayworth suffered a sudden, fatal heart attack. He slipped away before he could ever witness the show he had just finished transforming into an immortal pop culture phenomenon. The cruel irony is hard to ignore. Both of Cape Kennedy's respected commanders fell right at the doorstep of the 1970s. Looking back from 2026, Hayworth's story serves as a haunting reminder of destiny's sharp irony. After 61 years, his image remains forever captured in the final reels of a bygone era, living proof that sometimes the spotlight is nothing more than a fleeting blink before the shadows of time claim us forever. Number 7. Emmeline Henry, the radiant star, extinguished in her prime. Have you ever wondered how a woman who spent her entire on-screen career chasing everyone else's secrets could hide such a terrifying truth about herself? In the world of I Dream of Jeannie, Emmeline Henry was Amanda Bellows, the nosy, sharp-witted, and vibrant wife. She was an unmistakable powerhouse of energy, a comedic genius who knew exactly how to turn the ironic mishaps at Cape Kennedy into pure television gold. Audiences back then were obsessed with her charm. She was a star in her prime, and everyone believed she would dominate the Hollywood spotlight for decades to come. However, Emmeline's real tragedy didn't stem from cheap tabloid scandals or illicit addictions, but from a brutal betrayal by her own body. While fans were busy laughing at Amanda Bellows' antics on their TV screens, the real Emmeline was fighting a medical nightmare with no escape. In 1979, just 9 years after the series wrapped, the world was stunned to learn she had passed away from an aggressive brain tumor. The contrast is haunting. A woman so full of life, who had just been lighting up the screen, was permanently extinguished at the age of 51. The Hollywood of that era showed its coldest face. There was no warning, no grand comeback. Her radiance was simply frozen forever in the late 1970s. Number 8. Michael and Sarah, a powerful djinn. Broken by fatherly grief. In the world of I Dream of Jeannie, Michael and Sarah was the blue djinn, a commanding, rugged spirit with overwhelming power. Beyond the screen, he was one half of Hollywood's ultimate power couple through his marriage to the show's star, Barbara Eden. At the time, he was the personification of strength, success, and a model family that all of America envied. People truly believed that with his commanding presence, Sarah could shield his home from any storm. But that strength proved to be a hollow illusion when faced with a merciless reality. In 2001, Sarah's world was permanently shattered when his only son, Matthew, died from a brutal heroin overdose. The irony is soul-crushing. The man who played an all-powerful king on screen was left utterly defenseless as his own flesh and blood was consumed by the monster of addiction. The grief was so profound it stripped the very life from him. His final years weren't spent basking in his legendary legacy, but imprisoned by a different kind of sentence: Alzheimer's disease. This cruel illness slowly erased his most brilliant memories, leaving a man once defined by his power wandering in the fog of forgotten glory. Michael and Sarah passed away in 2013 at the age of 91. Looking back from 2026, 13 years after his departure, and 61 years since the world first met him, his story remains a haunting footnote. He has been gone for over a decade, leaving Barbara Eden as the lone keeper of their shared memories. The powerful djinn is gone, serving as a heartbreaking reminder that even the strongest spirits can be broken by the unhealable scars of fatherly grief. If you still cherish these pieces of television history, hit like to support the video and subscribe to join me as we continue to peel back the layers and uncover the truth behind the radiance of these legends.